have an area of high pressure off to the north of here, and that is why the steering is due west. So it does look like it's going to be making landfall shortly somewhere in southern Nicaragua and northern Costa Rica. So the hurricane warning still in effect, really, from Bluefields, Nicaragua, all the way down the bulk of the Costa Rican, at least Caribbean coast. Farther off to the west, tropical storm warnings on the western side of Costa Rica and Nicaragua. And this system is going to be rather quick. In fact, by this time tomorrow, it's already going to be into the eastern Pacific. And notice how it weakens significantly, at least forecast for now, about a 60-mile-an-hour sustained wind. So the mountains will really shear this thing apart. But in addition, it's going to be a rough 24 hours and could be downright dangerous with the flash flooding and mudslides expected through this region. So we're not quite done yet. Imagine we're talking upwards of a foot of rainfall through tomorrow afternoon and evening in a very short period of time, and a very low area time as well. And when we're talking about the mountains funneling all that water down, yeah, the areas in, let's say, the valleys could really start poking up a lot of this water. So it's going to be a tough ride here, and it's going to be very dangerous for southern parts of Nicaragua and Costa Rica once it makes landfall. And it looks like this thing will continue to strengthen. The only good thing is that there's not a lot of water left for Otter to continue to strengthen, but it would not be surprised if this becomes Category 3 before it makes landfall.
All right, we'll be watching it closely, Todd. Thank you. And now for something a little different. We have some snow. It was coming down earlier, but now it looks like a little reprieve in Burlington, Vermont. 32 degrees out there right now. And that's kind of the key. Where we're seeing the snow right now, it's marginally cold. And when we look ahead, some of these areas that are marginally cold will be rather warm.
Yeah, it's going to be a different weather pattern next week, all up and down the East Coast, I think, for the most part. I mean, you know, we're going to have some snow maybe this weekend in some of the higher elevations, but next week, warmer air is going to make it all the way up to the Canadian border, and hopefully it will be accompanied by some rain as well, because we talk about the drought in the southeast where we think the odds of it being rainy next week are pretty high, but it's also going to rain, we think, in the northeast as well.
Well, I think it's an important distinction that you make every time we look at this graphic. This is a chance graphic, not a QPF or a rain total graphic. So just because it says below average and shaded brown there across the west doesn't mean they're not going to get any rain, but their levels are going to be below average.
Exactly right. So this is sort of a probability of it being wet, and it's pretty high in the southeast next week, which is good news because we need it. But we got to talk about how it gets there, because it's got to change radically to get there, right?
This is what we've been waiting for. Something that looks like this, something that's just going to plow through, because nothing's been able to make it.
This is the jet stream pattern that we expect to be in place on Monday, and there will be a big dent in the atmosphere in the west. And so we're going to see a jet stream that's going to look like this, with some really strong winds aloft right in there. And with that kind of shape, you know that if you're familiar with the weather maps, it's going to be warm on this side of it. It's going to be, and up here too, but cold on this side, and in between is where the rain, storms, and some of those could be severe. I think that's what we're going to be looking at on Monday, maybe even Tuesday and Wednesday as well. And
when you look at sort of that checklist, a lot of them are there. You have the moisture available, you have the warmth, you have the lift, and you have that upper level support.
It's all there.
All of it. It's all there.
Yeah, and so that's why we have some red shade in here. The Storm Prediction Center agrees. They have an area outlined across the Gulf Coast as a possibility for severe weather Monday. A long way out. Stay tuned for the updates. But in addition to that, we're looking at rain all the way up to, again, the upper Midwest, in places that had snow from a recent winter storm up there. Now we're thinking Monday will be more like rain.
Yeah, and if your travel day is Monday, by the way, Chicago, Minneapolis, Dallas, all looking at rain and weather impact there. But by Tuesday, now we start to see it creep into places where the fires are burning right now.
Yeah, Maria, that would be right in there in particular. And we don't have dark green on here, but you could imagine with a frontal zone that powerful moving this way, it is going to bring a stripe of very heavy rain, we think, to many places that have seen those fires that you're talking about.
Lack of blue there, lack of snow with this one.
Yeah, not a lot of cold air, even with the upper trough to the west, but still active weather coming next week.
All right, Greg, thank you. Hope you all have a great Thanksgiving.
Currently in our area, 45 degrees under cloudy skies. Today, cloudy skies early, followed by partial clearing. High 55, winds south at 10 to 20 miles per hour. Tonight, clear to partly cloudy, low 34, winds northwest. at 5 to 10 miles per hour. Friday, sunny skies. High 55. Winds west-northwest at 5 to 10 miles per hour. Here's our 7-day outlook.
Happy Thanksgiving. If you are going to be traveling with the next hour or two, particularly out over the northeast, you're going to run into at least some light snow and a wintry mix, particularly along I-90 and also for the north-south interstates, I-91, I-93, even I-95. Just be careful out across these regions. It's not a heavy snow, but it's enough that could definitely make the roads a little slick. So just take your time out there. Make sure you do arrive at your friends or family's house. As we move on through the rest of this afternoon, notice the mass precipitation will continue to drift its way off to the east. Mainly a rain event. If anything does pop up in the form of rain from New York City to Boston, looks to be the best chance for that rainy precipitation. Farther to the north, that's where we have the snowflakes falling. But again, the accumulations should be relatively light through this region. And as we head our way through tonight into your Friday, that storm system leaves, and we have a second one that'll be arriving early parts of next week. Thanksgiving Takeover Top 10 Marathon starts right now.
Relentless power. Ferocious, roaring winds.
My goodness, the wind just been insane.
Sledgehammer waves of water. These are the most devastating hurricanes of all time.
A monster storm right now.
Including a Cat 4 buzzsaw that terrorized a storm chaser.
When I was in there, I'm going like, well, this is how I'm going to die.
Others loaded with catastrophic storm surge.
Water is about 160 times more powerful than wind.
And those that altered landscapes forever.
It was a storm that flooded the city, and we weren't prepared for it.
The winds are howling 50, 60 miles per hour.
We're counting down the top 10 worst hurricanes. Since 2004, hurricanes have accounted for over $300 billion in damage in the U.S. Hello, I'm meteorologist Jim Cantori, and I was in all of those and saw the destruction firsthand. Now you're going to get a front row seat to the worst hurricanes imaginable. On average, there's about 6 Atlantic hurricanes that form each year. In both 2004 and 2005, there were 6 that hit the U.S. alone, killing over 2,000 people. We know that tropical terror is far-reaching and can be felt along the entire coastline, from Maine to Texas, packing a 1-2 punch of wind and water.